The Labour Party says the government's shortchanging the health sector to the tune of $2.3 billion. This is coming from a report that has been released today by Infometrics, which was commissioned by the Labour Party, and Labour leader Andrew Little is in the Wellington studio with me. Good morning.
Good morning.
So health losing out, where is this pressure coming on?
The pressure, well, you can see it already with 60,000 people who can't get their first specialist appointment. You're seeing it in the mental health services in particular. You've got the case of in Christchurch, Barry Adams, who has got a prolapsed disc, who's been told that unless he can show that he can't work and can't walk more than 50 metres, he won't get surgery needed to fix his problem. He's 35 years old. It's those sorts of things that are now beginning to stack up and as indication that this is a health system that's under-resourced. But
from this information that's come from Infometrics, where do you see the significant problems lying? Is it just as straightforward as a shortfall of funding?
Yeah, because what has happened, or what is not happening, is that funding hasn't been keeping up with both the growth in population and the changing demographic profile. So an ageing population, so older people expect more healthcare. You see it from now, GPs routinely telling us now they have to put up their charges because the primary health funding isn't keeping up with the level of demand that's being put on them now. It is just a health system that it's getting extra money, but it's not enough money to keep up with the demand that's being put on it.
Can you ever, though, say there's enough being spent on health?
Well, we've seen savings in health. We saw it with Pharmac when Pharmac sort of kicked off operations in the 1990s. They were able to get some major savings. We've seen it also in, the collective procurement of devices and stuff that hospitals use. So there have been savings achieved, but the reality is when you have a growing population and you've got a changing population whose health needs are more than what they were before, and you've got new technology, new techniques and ways of doing things, then it is going to cost more. That is just the nature of health services and the health system.
So you'd pledge to turn this situation around should you be elected in September?
Yeah, we can't make up a shortfall of $3 billion in short order, and it's not something you can do in a year, probably not something you can do in 3 years.
How long would you want to leave it, though, in that situation?
Well, I think the problem is that we know that, like, for example, in the budget that was handed down a couple of weeks ago, in the next financial year alone, just for that financial year, the shortfall is $200 million. So we ought to be able to restore that reasonably quickly. In terms of the backlog, and that's unfunded activities for the previous years, we know that that's, if you don't get healthcare in 1 year, you don't get it done until you get it done. That's going to take longer to fulfil that backlog, and that'll take some years to do it.
But would you pledge to do it, in your first term?
Well,
can you not actually even promise that?
At $2.3 billion, it's going to be hard to even do that in the first term. It is a priority. I'm very clear, when it comes to, for example, spending $400 million on tax cuts for the top 10% of earners, that's not the priority for me and for Labour. It is actually putting money into health and other areas too. But when we announce our fiscal plan, you will see just how we will fill that backlog over the years to follow.
Okay. If I can also talk to you while you hear a little bit about the visit of Rex Tillerson. I understand that you were fairly forthright with him. What did you say?
Look, it was a perfectly cordial meeting, but I did say to him, my opening remarks were that some of the activities in the White House are causing disquiet to many New Zealanders, and I gave as the most recent example the withdrawal of the US from the Paris Accord on climate change is something that we are concerned about. And I put it in terms of saying we need the US to be a leader. It is a world power, and we need it to be leading in international agreements and international arrangements. And there just seems to be this slow, steady retreat, and that is causing concern to a lot of New Zealanders.
What did he say?
He said that even though the US had pulled out of Paris Climate Accord, they were committed to doing things to mitigate climate change. So he gave me that spiel. He said that there wasn't a lot of support on the Hill for the Paris Climate Accord. It's not the information I've received. There is a level of support for it, but anyway, look, he certainly personally committed to the US needing to be and wanting to be part of progressive international arrangements. Although he clearly had to speak on behalf of the White House, and the White House is not keen to be part of international agreements that are important to the rest of the world.
If you'd been in this situation now, if you'd been Prime Minister now, would you have hosted a visit from a member of the Trump administration?
Yes, because I think the relationship between New Zealand and the United States is a very important one, and that relationship transcends whoever is in the White House and whoever is in the beehive at any one time.
So you'd host Donald Trump, you'd shake his hand?
If there was an offer of a visit, I certainly wouldn't see myself turning that down. And if I had to shake his hand, I'd shake his hand. Who knows how my knuckles will be at the end of it, but that's the way it is. But I think you've got to recognise that it's the relationship between the two countries that is the most important thing, irrespective of who's in the Oval Office and who's in the beehive.
What do you think of the news that was around yesterday? It's gone global actually this morning about Wellingtonians flipping the motorcade, the bird. Do you support that?
I mean, people have done what they've done. My view is, and having met Rex Tillerson, I think it was important to keep the relations at that interpersonal level at a cordial in a cordial way, and I did that, and we were polite and courteous to each other. I have to say, I think he, having been briefed that there were some issues he wanted to raise in my discussions with him, he actually didn't. He let me raise the various issues, and we did that, and he listened and he exchanged, and it was a genuine meeting and interest, I think, in hearing from us. So I think he was genuine. He's doing the job that you'd expect the Secretary of State to do, but you do get the impression that it's a lot of repair work he'd done because of the actions of his president. So,
sorry, just to be clear, was that a yes or a no about whether you supported the flipping of the bird at the motorcade?
It's not something I would go around doing. Certainly not as leader of the opposition. I doubt whether I'd do it if I wasn't leader of the opposition. The relationship with the US is an important one, and it is possible to disagree and express our various disagreements and still be cordial with each other, and that's the way we ought to conduct those relations.
Appreciate your time this morning. Andrew Little, the Labour leader in the Wellington studio at 27 minutes to 8.
Coming up before 8 on Morning Report.